And I have found the record button. I think, oh my God, it's one of those moments where I'm not sure if I press record, but I have. It's Frank
I love
Foley
you
again
already.
with with another Stories of Our Lives interview with a
Mm.
fantastic lady I've got here, Lisa Carpenter, who's on the west coast of America. This is amazing technology, and
Canada.
she's been.
Canada.
Are you in
I'm
Canada? I
Canadian.
did not know that.
I know it gets even better, Frank. It
Wait,
gets even
stop.
better. I'm
Let's start
Canadian.
again. Let's start again.
No,
Come on.
I say we just keep going because
No,
this
definitely,
is what
definitely.
makes it real.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh my God,
Love it.
I'm such an idiot.
No, not
So
at all.
Lisa's really generously, so not only have I offended her by calling her American,
Uh-huh.
we made a mistake, and she's been up since 5 o'clock because we kind of got the timings wrong. So, she's probably, would like to reach through and actually strangle me, but we're going to press
No.
on. Lisa's, a nutritionist and a life coach, and I start, the first question I'm going to throw at you is that I know you, and we're here because of Kerry, my partner, and she kind of
Mm.
made a list of people. When this project started to take off for me and I was so excited about it, she said, I'm going to make a list of people I know that are amazing, and you were one of the names on that list. and
Oh.
and that's, I think that's pretty cool. And I start off by saying, do you recognize that in yourself? Where you, because we're going to talk about where you've come from,
Mm.
and where you are, the journey, and if we can see some threads from back then to now.
Mhm.
But do you recognize where you are in your life now? Do you recognize that you would be on someone's list of amazingly dynamic people that are really interesting to talk to?
First of all, I never take offense to being called American. And how would you know I was Canadian? That's just like an extra bonus in the morning. And I'm up at 5 a.m. regardless, although usually not hair and makeup. But honestly,
Right.
even that's low maintenance. So there's no worries. There's no worries there.
That's good.
I think more than ever in my life, what I've had to allow myself to receive is the fact that there's a tremendous amount of people paying attention to what I'm doing and what I'm saying.
Right.
And I haven't really realized that, or I was just in
Wow.
denial of that, right? Because so often in our businesses, we look at like these success metrics that we can
Yeah.
hold in our hands that are tangible. And, quite a long time ago, I had to make peace with the fact that I was going to be putting out a tremendous amount of content into the world, usually
Yeah.
just my own stories, and that they were going to impact people, but I would more often than not, I would never know the impact or influence
Right.
I had on
Wow.
somebody. And I
Yeah.
had to make peace with that, right? Because if we're constantly looking for that external validation of you're good enough, I need your messages, your stories are awesome, we stop because more people won't tell us that we're impacting them
Yeah.
than people
Yeah.
will. So whenever I get a moment like this where I do find out that, I am impacting somebody or I'm on somebody's list, whatever that means, it matters to me. It
Yeah.
matters to me that me sharing my stories and my growth is impacting somebody else and hopefully helping them expand in a different way. So I was really honored to be on that list, and I was
Yeah.
excited to do this.
That's cool. It's really funny because as you were talking about that need for, um, you know, legitimization or whatever the word is,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that I was thinking that is what social media is, isn't it? You put a post out and then you check all day to see
Yeah.
how many likes you've got. You know what I mean? That's kind of the world that we've created to a certain extent. Is
Right.
that kind of constant need for, is anybody liking what I say? So that's really interesting.
Well, I'll tell you the story about how I got to that place, since we're going to talk about stories anyways, because it was a
Definitely.
powerful moment for me. I'd been hired to do a keynote presentation,
Right.
and I'm not standing up and speaking in public. It does not come natural to me, and
Right.
I don't love to do public speaking because I find there's a lot of preparation involved, and I'm very
Yes.
much an intuitive speaker. Like I can have a
Right.
conversation like this till the cows come home. So I put a lot of work and effort into this presentation. It was
Yeah.
powerful. I was sharing a lot of my stories. And I went up in front of a room of, I can't remember, I think it was about 150 people.
Right.
And I went up there and I powerfully delivered my presentation with my slides and everything. And I left the stage and I remember driving home with the sunroof open. And I was just like, euphoric, right? Like that was amazing, right? Like totally so proud of myself, high five moment, really celebrating and saying, I think I want more of this. This is amazing.
Right.
And then the next day, I'm waiting for my like email to explode. And there's no emails. And I'm waiting for my Facebook to explode. And there's crickets. And I went from this place of euphoria to, was that crap? Is that crap? Am I crap?
Wow.
I thought it was powerful, but does anybody care? And I didn't realize that I had detached these expectations, innocently enough and unknowingly, to that presentation, that I was there to impact people and I needed validation that happened. And I remember having a very powerful session with my coach, and she said to me, do you see how you went from like here to all of a sudden, like, you feeling good about what you delivered wasn't enough unless you had that external validation. And I remember her saying to me, are you willing to continue to go out in the world, Lisa, and share your message, knowing that you are often not going to see the impact that you're having? And are you willing to be your best friend, your best ally, and really celebrate those moments because you feel good about what you presented? And that really shifted everything for me. So yes, we all like that external validation. It is important as well. But when our entire self-worth and like importance in this world is hung on somebody else's opinion of us, we're not going to get very far.
Absolutely.
Right? We have to be able to self-validate as well. And that, at the end of the night, when I put my head on the pillow, I have to be the one to say to myself, like, today you made a difference in this world to someone, and believe that at my core, even if I have no physical like proof.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that. We had a conversation last night along the same lines, that, there is that kind of questioning about what you're putting out and the responses. And we just said, we came to the same point. If you speak your truth and you're passionate about what you believe in, then the rest of it has to take care of itself, Listen, I want to track this through, because you have created, you've created coaching practice, and you've written books about nutrition, and we're going to get to that later. But I want to follow, if we can, follow a path. Let's find out what you were like when you were Lisa. Who were you when you were 6?
Oh my goodness.
5 or 6. Let's take us through. What was family life for Lisa? Who were you then? Lisa, were you Lisa Carpenter then, or?
No, my last name used to be Passmore. So I'm from the Passmore clan.
Okay.
Who I was like when I was 5 or 6, I wish I could recount to you a lot of memories of when I was little, but I don't have a ton of memories of when I was little. Okay. And I've kind of gone, did something happen? Have I blocked this out? I don't think so. I just don't think I remember. And so I've gone back to my parents and asked them a lot about, what I was like as a child. And, I think I was always very spirited and independent. And I don't know when that free-spirited little girl started to change, but I did.
Wow.
And, we go through life kind of, and I watch this with my own kids, looking to our right and our left, and we just want to fit in and belong, right? Like that's a basic human need to belong. And I'd always kind of felt like I was the black sheep for whatever reason, whether it was a teacher telling me that, I shouldn't do something, because and I write about this in the book. I was always questioning everything. And I can see now how that would have been like, enough, Lisa, just because I said so. But at the time I was always questioning things. And, when you're questioning things all the time and getting shut down, you learn to like turn your voice off. You learn to, and you start to feel like, what's wrong with me? Is nobody else seeing the world the way I'm seeing it? And that started to change me. It really did start to change me. And it's only since I've kind of unraveled all this stuff that I can look back and see, I've talked about this in other interviews, it almost like becoming like Joey Tribbiani, if you've ever watched Friends, the episode when he puts on all of Chandler's clothes. I was literally walking around wearing all the stuff because it was like I was putting on, okay, I need to be like this for you, and I need to be like this for you, and for you to like me, I need to be like this, and for me to not like stand out and stick out, I need to be like this, and where do I fit in and how do I belong? And it's taken me a long time to come back around to belonging to myself first, and then allowing myself to belong and fit in with other people, because I am not some special snowflake. There are a lot of men and women who view the world through my lens. I just needed to find them.
Yeah.
And I needed to let go of the stuff that really wasn't me, and the behaviors that were getting in the way for me really connecting to myself. So, you know, I was reading a report that I did in a class. It was a sales class. This was way back in the day. And it said that I was an extrovert. And I'm like, I'm an extrovert. I'm an introvert. But at one point I used to be this, like, you know, larger than life. And then, you know, it shrunk down, and I've come back to that. I am still an introvert. I'm an extroverted introvert. I can, you know, right. I just came back from a summit, and yesterday I had to not people at all. I just had to not talk to anybody. But yeah, it's been kind of been an interesting journey for sure.
Okay. I just want to dig a little bit deeper, if you don't mind, because it's fascinating.
No, not at all.
So back then, I mean, maybe 6 or something is too young, but back when you start to get those memories, 8, 9, 10, where were you in delight? What was delightful for you back then?
So
what was it that you had to shut down? Was it the joie de vivre of being a 9-year-old, or was there something specific? Did you like something specific that you had to shut down? Or,
you know, I think my unraveling, we'll call it, started in school. I think it really, really started in school. The, you know, wanting to fit in and wanting to belong and wanting to be popular in elementary school, and struggling with things in school, struggling with, you know, math and English and this and that. And, you know, and as soon as I kind of picked up that nugget that I wasn't smart enough, and I didn't understand why we were learning half of the things that we had to learn. So again, I would question everything. Why do I need to know this? Like, I'm not going to be an accountant. Why do I need to know algebra? That was kind of like that. That's, I think, where it started for me, right? Those feelings of just not quite being good enough. And then within my family, I love my mom and dad. And, you know, I'm never going to throw them under the bus, because I believe that we're always doing the best we can with what we have, and from the perspective we're staying at. My dad was always kind of like, I always felt like he was super hard on me, right? Like I couldn't, you know, just wanted to be his cuddly daughter on his lap. And that was not really the way it was, at least through my lens and my perspective. And I could, you know, I'm sure he has a very different perspective. So there was always this kind of seeking my father's love, always in arguments with my parents about everything. So again, it just kind of continued to feed that there must be something wrong with me. Why don't I fit in? And I really played that, and I can see it now with my son. I played that perpetual victim, but I didn't see any other perspective, right? Like I didn't think that things were happening for me. I thought they were happening to me. And why is this? And why is this? So, you know, it all really, really started at a young age. And it's just, you know, been slowly releasing that, because I am actually quite smart, maybe just not in algebra.
That's fascinating. It resonates with me so much. Spent my whole life, I felt like the scarecrow from Wizard of Oz, you know, kind of, you know, I need another certificate to prove that I'm clever, you know what I mean?
Yes. So, you know, then the learning after I got out of school, so that, you know, when you feel like you're not smart enough or good enough, we can step into this striving energy, right? Striving. Yeah. And again, like I was completely unconscious to all of the things happening in my life. So it's so fascinating to look back on my own stories and see like through a different lens. But it was literally like that striving energy, like now I'm going to prove it to you, right? I moved away from home. Like I moved out of my house after I graduated, because, you know, I think my parents couldn't take me anymore, and I certainly couldn't take them. You know, I was going to make my way in the world. I was going to eat ice cream for breakfast. And pretty soon you learn that, you know, you can spend your entire paycheck just putting condiments in the fridge. And it really became that, like, I'm going to prove to myself, I'm going to make something of myself. I'm going to, you know, strive, but still dragging along that story of I'm not quite good enough. I'm not smart enough. And it took me a long time to kind of find what I wanted to do with my life. Like you know, university felt like overwhelming. Like I was never going to, you know, graduate from there. So I didn't go that route. Started in college. anyways, was kind of,
sorry to interrupt you. What did you take? What did you study?
in college, I started to take psychology and criminology because that was fascinating for me.
Yeah.
But then I left that too. And then I decided I was going to be a paramedic. And then I decided I was, like, I was all over the place. I did not know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And, in high school, we had to take this test that would show us what jobs were best suited for us after we graduated, so we could kind of map the course. And I remember mine came back and said that I was perfectly suited to put horseshoes on horses. Right? So you can see how devastating that was.
Oh my
I was
God.
like, that's what I'm going to amount to, which is why it was kind of like all, I was all over the place. So eventually I kind of settled into, I got married and, started to have kids because I think that was just kind of a default for me. Like, well, we'll just settle into what the next thing I'm supposed to do. And I'd been working in corporate. I had wanted to go out on the road in sales. They wouldn't put me out on the road because I was a woman. And I was like, peace out. Right. I'd given them years of, at this time, again, I'd given them years of my life, right? Like the victim. So I walked away from that. And from that moment forward, I said, I'm never working for someone again. I'm going to chart my own path. So when I had my first son, I had started to get my personal training certification. So I've become a personal trainer. And I remember my dad, God bless him, said to me, but when are you going to get a real job?
Yeah.
Right. So there's that striving energy. So that striving energy is all about pursuing that thing that's going to make us happy or good enough outside of our body. So it was always driven by this wanting to be good enough, wanting to prove myself. So it wasn't a healthy striving. So I got, certification after certification, and I never even took them out of the envelopes because I was like, well, it's not a university degree. Well, it's not a this, it's not a this. Right. And it wasn't until, probably when I moved my business out of my studio and home, and I laid out all my certifications on the floor and just allowed myself to sink into how much I actually knew, not even the life experience that I brought along for the ride. So that's kind of how my career evolved. It went from growing this personal training business, which was incredibly successful, although I did block financial success, into my nutrition business, growing my courses, transitioning from that, and then ultimately moving my business online 4 years ago now, and then continuing to grow my coaching practice and have it evolve. But there was a whole bunch of stuff that I had to leave at the roadside along the way because it was blocking me moving forward, and I had to release this kind of striving energy, right? Stop looking for that somebody else to say, you've made it, you're good enough, like you're smart enough, like, like that old Saturday Night Live skit, and actually claim that for myself. Say, wait a minute, I get to show up and be good enough because I'm choosing to feel that way.
Right.
But I never realized I was struggling with low self-worth like that. Again, it wasn't on my radar. I thought I was amazing.
There's so many of us. I think that's true. You don't realize it until later. I just want to pick at something. There's so much there, and I'm going to try and remember it all. So when you said you were in corporate for a while, and then that obviously what you said about it, was there? I'm interested in the moments of our lives. Obviously the stories around those moments, but were there moments like, well, I want to come to when you jumped from personal training to the line you've taken, like in your later life. But in that moment where you've got a job, you've probably got a steady job, you've got the job that people expect you to get. And then that job is you're meeting blocks, and take us through the process of you thinking, screw this. This is, how did that work? Can you think of, were there moments, or was it a gradual accumulation?
That was probably one of the most powerful moments in my life. I've never forgotten it, yet I rarely talk about it. So I've been working for this company. I'd been on their customer service desk for years, had really worked myself up there. I was responsible for getting all the orders onto cruise ships. So in Vancouver, we have the cruise ships come in. And it was a big responsibility because if you screwed something up and the ship is out, like we would be responsible for it.
Sure.
But I really wanted to go out on the road in sales. I wanted that freedom and independence, and I'd done everything that they had asked me to do.
Right.
And finally a sales position opened up, and, you know, they were considering me for it. But when push came to shove, they ultimately said, no, we're not going to give it to you, because they didn't think that I could do the job. And, you know, granted, I was probably in my mid-20s back then, and this was a very, you know, it was a male dominated industry. So I understand that. But it was that moment that I had to decide, like, was I going to stay or go? Because I wanted to go out on the road, and I was like handing my destiny over to somebody else. So I told them I would have to think about it. They gave me another option for staying. And I remember I had to walk into the, you know, president's office and let him know. And he was at his desk reading his paper. And I walked in, and he looked up, and I said, okay, you know, I've made my decision, and I'm actually going to, you know, I'm going to be leaving the company because I want to go out on the road in sales, and I'm going to pursue that. And he said, okay. And he looked back down at his paper.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, wow, like I've given so much to this company. Like I've done all the right things. And you're not going to give me this opportunity. And not only are you not going to give me this opportunity, but in that moment, I didn't feel appreciated or valued at all. Right. And it made walking out the door so easy. And I was able to go on and, you know, I pursued an outside sales career. I worked for a giftware company and a souvenir company, and, you know, got my chops, you know, driving around and booking orders and doing sales, and, you know, loved the freedom and flexibility of that. And the only reason I gave that up was because I decided to have my family, and I didn't want to be out on the road all the time. But I remember thinking that, like, I'm never giving my destiny away to somebody else. Like, I'm going to chart my own path, even if it means working on commission. So, yeah.
I love that. Can I just speak to anybody that's watching, all the millions of people that will watch this interview around the world?
I love that.
Yeah, that would be so good.
Hold the dream.
But listen, if you're watching and you're inspired by Lisa, because she's such a powerful person, and she's talking, you know, with so much passion about her own stories. But if you're there, you know what, and you're thinking, oh, you know what, I'm struggling or whatever. It's the 21st century. We do not have to let other people set the agenda for us anymore. We don't have to do that anymore. Listen to this lady. She's amazing. She just made a decision and said, you know what, screw it. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm gonna carve out my own niche, and I'm just going to do it myself. And you can do that. You can absolutely do it. It 100%. Might take you into an uncomfortable area, but you can do it and make a start. Just listen to this lady.
And that, you know, that's the key, what you just said there, discomfort. We have to be willing to be uncomfortable and not make it wrong, right? Discomfort will not kill you. It won't. It's just uncomfortable. And we can be comfortable in our suffering. We can be comfortable in our cozy relationships. We can be comfortable in our job, and we can tell ourselves all the stories. Well, I need the money and this and that and the other thing. But they are just stories. Oh, bye, baby. You want to give me a quick kiss? We are having a cameo.
Fantastic.
Love you.
How you doing,
Have
dude?
a great day. Say hi. Say hi.
How you doing?
Okay, off you go. Have a good day. Love you. Bye. Mompreneur life, right? Like this is real life. And that's another good, you know, like we don't have to be all professional and uppity to be successful, right? Like we need to start being more real. This is the age where we get to be real, and the more real you show up, you know, it gives other people permission to do the same thing. So get comfortable being uncomfortable, and you know, it won't kill you. It really won't kill you. Well, like, what's the worst thing that will happen? And a lot of people, when, you know, if they're thinking about leaving their jobs or starting an online business or whatever, there is going to be a lot of discomfort, but there's always another door. So if you start something and you hate it, like if I'd left corporate and I hated outside sales,
right?
There's other jobs. I could have gotten other job. I could have been a Starbucks barista, right? The bottom line is, like, when I graduated high school and when I was working at this corporate job, what I do now for a living and how I run my business didn't exist. I couldn't have dreamed it because it didn't exist. Like when I was graduating high school, there was no online entrepreneur as a future. Like, oh, I think I'll do that. It
Yeah.
didn't exist. And we don't know what careers are going to exist in the
So
future. Right. So keep your head up and see what's available to you.
Yeah.
Just don't know. Mm-hmm.
I just love that. And, you know, let's take us through, because you've got, you know, I've seen, you know, some of the things you've done in your book. Let's eat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I think that's where we are now, or where you are now. But can you take us from, you know, just finish that part of the story off where you've had a family, and then you start with your personal training, and then
Yes.
you make a jump into, and it's almost like, for me, listening to your story, it's almost like at some point you kind of you discovered that 8-year-old who was gregarious and out there, and you kind of stepped into sort of sharing that inspirational side of you, and you started coaching people, you started talking about nutrition, and actually having this impact that in some ways our acculturation, our socialization kind of sort of, it tries to make us fit in, and it can dampen down that natural brilliance that we have. So can you finish that off, that little bit of the story there?
I love a little bit of the story. It's
know. Is this the whole part? Yeah, right.
This is the story, people.
This is the story.
Okay, so, you know, I'd started my personal training career, and had, you know, was working at a gym, not for a gym, but running my business out of there. And again, they came to me and said, you're going to have to work here for us, or you know, because you're not going to be able to use the facilities. And I was like, that's not happening. So I moved my business into my house, continued to grow it until it grew to a point where I knew that in order to leverage my time, I needed more space. So I moved into a studio with another trainer. And then from there, opened my own studio. And then from there, opened, you know, a second larger studio with a partner. And that grew, and my time was full, but I knew I wanted to do more with nutrition, because it didn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how much you move. Like I've trained people who run triathlons, and they're still putting on weight. Like, it doesn't matter how much you move if you don't look at what you're eating. So that really fascinated me. So that kind of dove me into the world of fitness and figure competition, because what I've learned from my experience at school, I'm a kinesthetic learner. I have to be hands-on. I have to be doing it. I have to be in it, right? Again, like Joey Tribbiani, I got to be in the map to figure out the direction I'm going. So obviously I'm, you know, a child of the 80s, because I love Friends. So that's how my nutrition journey unfolded in my business, because I really wanted to take what I learned about radical body transformation, but create it in a way that it was about freedom and choice for women. So taking the principles, but not this rigid structure. And then I also became so aware of how women, even when they had these perfect stage bodies, were still really abusive to themselves, and, you know, looking at kind of body image. So from there, I had to slowly start to let go of my personal training clients, because I needed to create space to do my nutrition programs, which was terrifying, because one's paying the bill. And honestly, I don't know how it all worked out. It just did. My courses grew, and then I decided to move them online. But in the midst of that, you know, it was a real personal catalyst. So at this point in time, I had left my marriage, not because there was anything wrong with my marriage. There was nothing. He's an amazing guy. He still is one of my best friends to this day. We have 2 wonderful children together. But I knew that he wasn't the man for me. He wasn't the man I was going to live my days out with. And so I walked away from that, much to my parents' dismay. You know, because if you're not trying to kill each other, you just figure it out and you make it work. But I knew I didn't want to compromise or settle in my life. So I had left my marriage, because I held on to this belief of this life and business I wanted to create for myself, and the type of partner I wanted to have. I wanted that person that I could look across the room and be like, we get each other, right? That soul connection and the adventure and spirit. So anyway, so fast forward, and, you know, this new guy was in my life, and I had my studio and was moving everything online. And him and I had decided, air quotes, decided to start a family together, accidentally, on purpose, something like that. And, you know, so we had a baby, and at 6 months old, what I discovered was he was an addict.
Oh.
And all of this had been happening right underneath my nose. And it was devastating. It was devastating. So, I'll kind of fast forward through this because his story is his to tell.
Right.
He went off to rehab. He spent 2.5 months there. And I was left in this devastation of what just happened to my life,
Wow.
right? What just happened to my life and how do I move forward from here? And what started out as I'm going to do everything I can to save my relationship and to fix addiction, rapidly turned into, holy crap, I need to save the relationship I'm having with myself. It became my unraveling. And I was just sharing this with my group this morning, the moment when, I'd said to the counselor, well, I'm going to go visit him every weekend to make sure that he knows he's loved and supported. And my counselor was like, so let me get this straight. You're going to load up your 6-month-old baby. You're going to take a ferry ride 2 hours there, to stay for an hour, to take a ferry ride 2 hours back, to make sure that he feels good. Right. And then hard stop. And I was like, yes. And I was very defensive, only to leave that meeting going, what am I thinking? Like, I want to make him feel better. What about me? And that was really like when things started to click in. So that became a journey for me that has, initially was kind of this year-long dive into what is my relationship with myself and how did this end up in my life? And it really changed my life on many levels. On a career level, it changed how I show up as a coach. It also took all the work I'd been doing around nutrition and what I'd created in my programs and tied it up with a red bow, because what I'd actually been teaching people was how to create a system or a recovery system around food. And now I understood the addictive piece of eating and the addictive piece around dieting and what drives and motivates our behaviors. And I learned so much about codependent behaviors, because that's in essence what I was struggling with, was this, all these codependent behaviors. So codependent behaviors are things like people pleasing, control, approval seeking, all these kind of caretaking. I was a severe caretaker, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with these behaviors, except when the volume is turned up on them so loud that we're actually drowning in our lives to them. We're putting everybody else in front of us. And it's because we don't feel good enough. So if we love people enough, right? All this stuff. So no wonder I ended up with an addict, because it going back to that early age of not feeling good enough.
Yeah.
Right? How can I get people to like me? How can I get that validation, external validation? How can I take care of people? That, that nurturer side of me that wanted to be loved, love and belonging. So big. So that kind of, that was a really, really huge catalyst for me. So my hubby now has been in recovery for 6 years. I've been in recovery for, 6 years from codependency. We have an amazing relationship because we both did our own thing to get healthy. Yeah. And then we were able to come together as a couple and become healthy. So he really is that relationship I'd always dreamed of. I just didn't realize we'd have to walk through the gates of hell to get there. So addiction was really the best thing that ever happened to me, because it gave me back my life. And regardless of what, happens with us, I am a whole person now. He is a whole person now, and we move forward from there. So that's how I'm now able to show up differently online and share my stories and be vulnerable. And because I'm not coming from a place of approval seeking anymore, or not feeling good enough. And all the women I work with struggle with these type of things, and the men that I'm working with as well. It looks different for different people. And I have this amazing intuitive ability to just see what's going on for people and get right under it and call it out and bring it to the surface. Because I think that that's the first thing that needs to change, is this level of consciousness we have. Because 6 years ago, I was completely unconscious to my behaviors, right? I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And the universe is like that. It pulls the curtains back when we're ready to learn. And, in that moment when I discovered his addiction, that was my, the curtains are open, the sunlight is shining through. And I was like, oh my God, this can't be happening. But the universe knew that I was ready to step into that next level. And that's I talk a lot about what next level leadership looks like, right? Like what got me to here in my business, right? The doing, the, it worked until it didn't, the striving, all of those things. I'm so grateful for that because it got me to here, but it was never going to get me to that next place, because that next place requires us as human beings to start from the inside out. That's what next level leadership looks like. And that's now how, like I posted yesterday, I just got back from the summit where I was sitting at the table with, 7-figure entrepreneurs and new startups. And I was like, wow, like I get to be here, not because I've decided that I get to be there and I've decided that I belong and that I have something to contribute. But I mean, not years ago, that was not happening. Like I'm not there yet. I don't have enough success. I haven't done enough things. So yeah, it's my story from like where I started layering up to then stripping it all off. When I really kind of sink into the story of that, it's very, very powerful to see how far I've come. And it makes me excited for what I'm going to discover in the future, right? Because there's always the next layer. But what's different now is when I discover something about myself, it doesn't feel traumatic anymore. It's like, oh, of course. Right. And I can self-correct and I can strip it. Like I've got so many tools in my toolbox now to help me move through things. And I don't judge. Like, even if I recognize something about myself, I don't judge it anymore. I'm just like, okay, this is cool. Right. There's way more curiosity. And what will happen if I shift this? And being behind the scenes of so many different entrepreneurs at so many different levels and women, we are all a hot mess. Like we all have stuff and we have to stop thinking that other people have something that we don't, because it doesn't matter whether they're, 5-figure, 6-figure, 7-figure in their business or their lives or whatever, or they've got the perfect marriage or the perfect family. I guarantee you behind the scenes, they're dealing with the same human stuff that we all are. Right. Like we're all on the same level playing field. Just some of us are a little bit further along in terms of our journeys and our consciousness, but we all have the same opportunity to discover things about ourselves and evolve.
I love that. I could listen to you talk for ages. It's just fantastic. I had a lovely image when you were talking about, sitting in the the seminar you were in yesterday of you frantically reaching around looking for your drawer of certificates so that you could be okay with being there. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah. And you know what? None of those certificates were good enough. And here's the irony. The people with the certificates and the degrees and the things, eventually they get to the point where they've put so much of their self-worth is tied up in those certificates. So I was the opposite, right? These aren't good enough. And then other people are at the other end of the spectrum, like that's the end all be all.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to be outside of their certificates. Right. So they puff up because of all their certificates, because their education is what makes them feel important and valued in this world.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, nobody cares about that.
That's right. So first of all, I have to ask, I'm supposed to do this every single time. I'm supposed to do this at the beginning, but I forget. So we're going to change tack a little bit, and I'm going to ask you some questions, but I'm going to kind of link one to what you were just saying. But before that, I want you just to take a couple of seconds, and you're going to tell me this at the end of the interview. Okay. So I want you to think of a piece of music or a song that is meaningful to you in some way, and tell me a little story about that at the end. Yeah. Okay.
Got it.
Cool. As you were talking about that at the end there, what was ringing in my ears was wisdom. We at some point, it's not knowledge anymore. It's kind of deeper than that. It's wisdom. We get a knowing about ourselves, and we start to own our story. We start to understand who we are. If we're prepared to open our hearts to it, I think that kind of wisdom comes, and there's a kind of trustfulness in that. But so we're going to change direction a little bit. I'm going to throw some questions at you, and so along that line, the first one is that I'm fascinated by and always have been fascinated about what makes us thrive. what makes us glow, whatever word you want to use, flow state, shining, thriving, flourishing. What is that to you, Lisa? What's flourishing?
That's such a great question, because one of the shifts that I had to make is I realized that my entire life was living in a state of survival. And survival, I valued survival. Survival was like what drove me forward, right? I had to survive. And to get to a place of thriving, first I had to define what thriving even looked like. What would that look like? Well, one, it means you got to put down this fight and this need to constantly be in a state of survival, right? Yeah. I had to make that no longer okay. So for me now, thriving is about being present in my life. So it's not that I don't want things. It's not that I'm not still ambitious, but knock wood, if my life were to end tomorrow, I'm happy. I'm happy. I love my life. I love my home. I love my kids. I look around at the experiences I'm having. I'm like, I have such a rich life. Whereas before, I thought that thriving meant that I had millions of dollars in the bank. Then I could thrive. Right? So thriving now is really, it's a mindset. It's how I choose to show up every day. It's about the fact that I get to have rich conversations like this. It's about that I get to sit at these amazing tables because I've chosen to. It's that I get to be of service to the people that I work with. It's that I get to have a message because I've chosen to have a message. That's what thriving is. It's not about having things. It's about how I choose to feel every single day when I show up.
Right. Wow. That's so good. I love that. God, that's good. Okay. Lisa Carpenter. Mm-hmm. What are we doing here?
What are we doing? What is our purpose on this earth? Is that what we're asking? That's a big question. It's open for interpretation. Is it one of those questions? Okay, here's what I believe, what we're doing here. I personally believe that we get many swings up at bat in terms of our lives. I kind of feel like this is my lifetime that I'm finally getting to figure out a lot of stuff that maybe I've screwed up in previous lifetimes, which is cool. I hope that my next lifetime, maybe I just get to be a bird and chill the hell out. I think I need a breather lifetime because this one's been pretty intense. But what I believe to be true about this lifetime is that it is our journey to go from being born, perfectly imperfect, to then layering up, to then coming home to who we really are again. That it's like the hero's journey that we get to go through. Oh. And, I'm not some guru. And like I said, I still have lots of stuff that I've got to work on. But now it's like, what am I here to do? I'm here to discover me. I'm here to discover me. And if in the process I help other people discover themselves, that's pretty cool, right? Cool. When they, put me in the ground or, scatter my ashes wherever, to know that I had an impact, but also that I really embraced my life, whatever it looked like, and took risks and just had fun. We're not here to be serious. We're here to have a good time. Right. But that doesn't mean we can't do big things, right? It's the energy we bring to the doing that's more important. So yeah, that's kind of my take on.
I love it. That's so good. That's so good. Okay, Lisa, do you know who you are?
Yes. Do we need me to expand on that? But yeah. And I do, and I'm still growing. And I give myself full permission to change, who I am, as I go. Yeah. Because it's not really about who I am. It's about who I'm becoming, right? Who I'm becoming. Good. So that is going to be constantly evolving because, who I am now at 45 and who I'm becoming at 65, that's going to take some adjustment and changing as well, right? Aging changes how we show up in the world too. My wisdom is going to go deeper and go, who knows what's waiting around the corner for me. Yeah, but right. Yeah, I think if you asked anybody if they know who they are, they would say yes, because they know who they are right now through the perspective that they're standing in. So, you know, to answer your question, yes. Do I know who I am right now? Absolutely.
I love it. And can I just say, for the record, from where I'm seeing, you don't have any worries about aging. That's not going to be a problem for you, I don't think.
No, my family lives long, and they all look really well, and, you know, eat your vegetables. And
Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to fill it to either complete the sentence or fill in the gaps. Yeah.
Okay.
The truth is.
The truth is, I don't know what the truth is. The truth is whatever perspective we view it through.
Love it.
Everybody's truth is different.
I love that.
That's a hard question.
It's a good question.
But a good question, right?
Pressure comes from
within, which also means you can release it.
Yes. God, that's good.
Yeah.
Love it. Success is
whatever you choose it to be. Right? I know that sounds so cliche, but it's the truth. Like, I used to define success very differently than I define it now. Success used to be like, until the money was in the bank, I didn't have success. And it wasn't until I shifted that perspective that I truly felt successful. So you get to decide, everybody watching gets to decide what success is for them. And it's a question that you need to keep returning to and tweaking and, you know, like refining.
That's so good. Given the chance, I would.
Given the chance, I would. You know, there's nothing in my life that I would go back and do differently, even all the, you know, with all the ups and downs and sideways.
Yeah, yeah.
If given the chance, I would travel around the world, and hopefully that is something I will make happen. I love to travel. So given the chance, if I could, like, just, you know, that's it.
In the end, it all comes down to.
In the end, it all comes down to how much I've loved and the impact I've made.
Wow, that's so good. Oh God, I love that. That's so good. Yeah, who cannot agree with that? That's just brilliant. Okay, Lisa, what a lot of people don't know about me is that I build small time machines, and
lovely.
Yeah, and they were safe. So I'm going to let you borrow it for a minute, but I want to send you back somewhere specific. I want to send you back to see Lisa Passmore when she's about maybe starting to go to school. And you don't have to, but I'd love to, if you could share what you might say to her.
You know, I have no problem sharing this because I've written about it on social media. I would go back to her and tell her to not stop shining. And I would tell her to not be so hard on herself, not judge herself, and just, you know, be her unapologetically.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of, I've had to do a lot of forgiveness work, and there's a lot of sadness when I look back on my younger self and how complicated and how messy I made everything. And, there are many times I wanted to leave this planet, and, it's only by the grace of God sometimes that I think I'm here. And that's part of my purpose, because I think that I have a really big guardian angel who is determined that I show up and do my work here. And,
that's brilliant.
Yeah, it just, it gets better. It gets better. Like, everything that we're going through is on purpose. And when we realize that, and we stop holding so tightly to the way we think things should be and allow them to happen, we will all find our way. We all have a purpose, but we don't have to desperately be looking for it. It will find us when we let go of that grip.
I love that. Letting go is so key. Lisa, do you think there's anything else?
For me, I think there's lots. I feel like I've only just kind of hit my prime in terms of the impact that I can have. And I think that that's true for everybody. Like we want to, you know, I met women who were in their, you know, late 20s, early 30s doing stuff that I was like, God, you guys, like I was out drinking and partying and you're changing the world already. So the paradigm is shifting. I think women are stepping into their power and doing this work at a much younger age, which is phenomenal. Every generation gets more and more enlightened. So I think that, I feel like I've only just started to really, truly realize the impact that I'm going to have in this world. And I don't know what that looks like. But I already see it because the impact that I have with the people that I work with, seeing the impact they have, right? Because I typically work with people who are doing big things in the world. So when they are impacting hundreds and thousands of women with their work, like I like to get to say like I'm a small pebble in their pond of reach.
Exactly.
That's very cool.
Exactly. Wow, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
It's just been so awesome to talk to you. I need you to tell me a story about a song or a piece of music.
A song, okay. This song is actually really, really easy for me. So music always has spoken to my soul, and I know when I'm kind of out of alignment, if I just find music, that will always. Music is my emotional channel. Right. That's what opens me up because I'm not a natural, like sink into my emotions. I actually had to learn how to feel my feelings again. So it's Viva La Vida by Coldplay. It's one of my favorite songs because the melody just like kind of splits me open. And every time I listen to it, I can literally put myself in that place of being in my car, sun shining, warm, windows down, right? Like it just makes me feel so connected to the world, the universe, whatever you want to call it, to myself, that is the song. And I don't know the first time I listened to it or what was involved in it. I just know how it makes me feel. And there's many songs that make me feel that way. In fact, right now I've been listening a lot to The Greatest Showman soundtrack. If you guys haven't seen that movie, like...
It's been our theme in the house for the last 2 weeks. Yeah.
Every time I listen to that music, I literally am just like
the one when he talks about I'm going home. It's like, God, it gets me. It's like, oh my God.
And the one that really hit me deeply was that when the opera singer is singing, she says, and she's saying, it's never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. Because that was a space I lived from for so long, that it was never going to be enough. It didn't matter what I got. It was never going to be enough. So that really touched me too, because I don't live in that place anymore, but I remember what that felt like. So yeah, music, it's
amazing.
Gives me chills.
So I'm going to link that song when we finally put this out. I'll pop that song underneath so people can listen to that. It's a well-known song, so everybody knows it. But so where can we find you, Lisa? Where can people find? I mean, I can tag everything, like websites and stuff, to the interview when we put it out. But just to tell people where they can find your stuff and.
So everything is over on my website, lisacarpenter.ca. If they're interested in learning more about my book, it launches February 20th on Amazon, and that's at lisacarpenter.ca/book launch, and it'll go well beyond that date. I'm on social media, so Lisa Carpenter Inc., like Incorporated, on Facebook. Excellent. I'm pretty easy to find. So
cool. Yeah. So I'll link a lot of that underneath so people got it. Would you? I mean, we might as well talk about it now. I mean, would it help to put this? You know, as long as I'll obviously let you watch it first, but would it help to put this out at a certain time? Do you want it to go out around about that time, or?
You can put it out whenever it feels.
Okay, that's cool.
I'm not attached to it. Whatever fits your schedule. I just kind of, everything unfolds the way it's meant to. I don't grip tightly to stuff like that. So
I wish we had another couple of hours because it's been just wonderful to talk to you, and everything Kerry said is right.
Well, we can always do it again because there's no lack of stories and insights in my life that I'm more than happy to share. I talk openly about so many things, from business to money to self-worth. It just and the best way to draw stories out of me is in, this type of format. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you. And sorry I had to get up so early, but it was worth it.
I'm up early every day, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, this was fantastic.
Thank you, Lisa. Take care.
All right. You too.
All the best. Bye. Bye.
Bye.